First off, for those that are not interested in timecode, you are dismissed. We'll be back with you again next week. For those of you that are, and you're not familiar with timecode, go ahead and take a look at this previous episode where we run through the timecode workflow. Now, what we're addressing here are particular cases where you are recording timecode to a camera that does not have a proper timecode input. That is to say, you're recording timecode to a microphone input to an audio track. What you have to do in post is you actually have to convert that audio timecode into something that your nonlinear editor app, whether that be Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, or whatever, can actually use as timecode to do the syncing of your audio and video files. Let's run through each of the three main options I've used and talk about the pros and cons of each. First of all, here we have DaVinci Resolve. There is a free version of DaVinci that does all of this as well. Let me just demonstrate very quickly how this works. I have 2 video clips and their associated audio clips that have not been synced yet. I recorded the video clips to a Nikon Z6 mirrorless camera that does not have a timecode input. I used a NanoLockit from Ambient Recording to record timecode to the video clips. That NanoLockit had been synced to my sound device's 633, which has a proper inbuilt timecode generator, so they were both in sync. And let's just go ahead and show you how this works. I go ahead and highlight all of these and drag them down into the bin. Go ahead and change that. Now you can see here, if we look at the 2 video clips, they're showing our start timecode as 0 in both cases. That's because, again, it has audio timecode. So when I play this back, you might need to adjust your volume a little bit. This is what it sounds like recorded to the audio track. Okay, so a nonlinear editor doesn't know what to do with that yet. So what we can do in DaVinci Resolve is highlight those 2 video clips, right-click, and say, Update Timecode from Audio LTC. LTC stands for Linear Timecode. So all we're saying here is take that audio, that kind of weird signal that you're hearing, and convert it to metadata that's stored within the video clip so that we can then use it to sync to the audio clips. So we'll go ahead and do that. That was simple. Then we just highlight everything, the audio clips and the video clips, right-click, choose Auto Sync Audio, and choose Based on Timecode. Now, when we come back to the video clips, watch what happens. Here's another recording, this time again using the Nikon Z6, synced up perfectly. Same with the other video clip. Here's a sample clip for us. We have a couple of things set up here. So I'm recording the sound right here with a boomed microphone. Fantastic. So that is DaVinci Resolve and how you do this in DaVinci Resolve. Now, there are some upsides and downsides. The upside, this is a free app. You can download the free version. It has all of this capability. The downside is I find that it's somewhat unreliable in DaVinci Resolve. This is 15.2.4. And I still find that probably 50% of the time it works, 50% of the time for reasons I cannot explain. It doesn't work in here. Those same exact files do work in some of the other applications we're going to look at. So that's one thing to consider. There is another nonlinear editor that can do this exact same thing that DaVinci Resolve can do. That is Avid Media Composer. So that is a capability that's been in Avid for a long, long time. Let's look at a couple of other standalone options as well. The next one is called Linear Timecode Convert. This is put out by a company called Video Toolshed, which you can see right here. You can see there's also a version that's branded by Timecode Systems, which actually produces timecode gear, timecode generators and things of that nature. So this is an interesting app. It runs on both Mac and on Windows, and it is a little bit less user-friendly than than one other that we're going to look at here in just a minute, but it gets a lot of things done and it does it very nicely. So you, of course, can just take your files here. Here are the same files that we had in DaVinci Resolve. Just drag them here. You can see, put the video clips here, the audio clips here. Then you have a few different options here. You can just destructively change the video clips so that the audio timecode is converted to metadata timecode and then save those files. That's one option. I would recommend that you back up your video clips before you do that. You can also actually write the WAV files into the video clips and re-export them. So it's not going to mess with the video, but it's actually going to do the sync up job. So it's going to do everything. It's going to convert the audio timecode to metadata timecode, sync up the audio file to the video file, and then export that as a new video file that's all synced up. So that's another option there as well. And if you're having any sort of issues in terms of that maybe one of the timecode generators is off by a few frames, you can fix that in here as well. So that's an option that works quite nicely. That one runs 135 euro, which comes out to about $150 US at the current time of this review. So that's one thing to consider there. The next one is from a company called Tentacle Sync, and this is actually probably my favorite third party. It's a little bit more user-friendly. As you can see here, we can take those same 4 clips, 2 video clips, 2 audio clips, drop them in here. We click the sync map button and they're all synced up and ready to go. You can also do it with multicam shoots. So if you have multiple cameras, it will put them all on a timeline here. And then you can export that timeline as an XML or AAF. You can then bring that into your video editing nonlinear editor app and start working away at it. You can do the same thing that you could do on the LTC Convert app, where you can actually essentially re-encode the video files with the audio synced up to them. So that's an option as well. And you saw how fast that was. Now, of course, when you have more clips, it'll take a tiny bit longer, but it's almost instantaneous. And it worked very nicely with both Premiere Pro, I've tested it on, and Final Cut Pro. So in terms of the XML, so that works very, very nicely. Of course, you can do that with DaVinci Resolve as well. It also has a variety of options here. If you are having trouble in terms of maybe the audio timecode was not recorded exactly perfectly, you have a few different options here. You can adjust the frame rate to whatever the frame rate was. You can tell it which track to read the audio timecode from, which channel to read it from. You can have it kind of adjust itself based on the level of the timecode that was recorded to the audio track. And you can tell it to maybe go to the middle of the file to read the timecode, or perhaps some random spot in the file. So you have a lot of options there to read that timecode. You can also apply an offset again if for some reason the timecode was a little bit out of sync. So you have options to fix that as well. Now, I can hear it already. People are going to say, I don't need timecode. I just clap, or I use pluralize, or whatever. Those are all fine solutions. I'm not trying to sell you on timecode over those solutions. I think in a lot of cases for shorter pieces, that clapping and syncing or using a regular old-fashioned slate works great. And if that's all you need, then that's great. But if you are working on a longer piece where you come home with 100 audio clips and 100 video clips, being able to sync them up quickly is going to save you time in post. And if you're working on a commercial piece of some sort where there's a budget involved and people are getting paid, then saving time actually amounts to money. So in that case, it can actually make sense to spend the extra money to do timecode. So in this case, the Tentacle Sync Studio at this time sells for $167 or $168. However, if you buy one of the Tentacle Sync products, the Tentacle Sync E, for example, one of their timecode generators, this software actually comes with that. So the one downside is that the Tentacle Sync Studio only works on macOS. So what they do have, however, is they have this Tentacle timecode tool, which is actually very similar to the LTC Convert tool for Windows. So if you do work on Windows, you do have this option instead. And I believe this is bundled as well with their Tentacle Sync E timecode generator boxes. So there was an overview of some of the software that is available. I would say that the Tentacle Sync Studio is probably my favorite to work with. I think that the LTC Convert is actually a very good app and very handy in terms of doing very basic converting audio timecode into metadata timecode. And then you kind of rely on your nonlinear editor to do the sync, which is fine. Most of them do that very effectively. And then probably the third option is DaVinci Resolve. Unfortunately, it isn't quite as reliable as the other options, but it is a free option. So if you can get it to work reliably, that's great. Hopefully, DaVinci Resolve can sort out some of those problems. The other issue I see is that there aren't really any ways to do any troubleshooting. So if it doesn't sync, and again, for me, it's been about 50-50. 50% of the time it does do the sync correctly, other 50% it doesn't. There are no options to go in and try and troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. So that's one of the downsides there. So overall, I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you have not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon.